The coffee was bitter, the eggs were overcooked, and table 12 was complaining about the wait time again. Just another Tuesday morning at Murphy's Diner in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, where the air conditioning barely worked and the customers treated the staff like they were invisible. Maria Santos had been working the morning shift for 8 months now, pouring coffee and taking orders from people who looked through her like she didn't exist. At 34, she moved through the cramped diner with practiced efficiency, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her uniform pressed despite being second-hand. "Miss, this coffee is cold," barked the man at table 8, a businessman in an expensive suit who'd been typing aggressively on his laptop since arriving. He didn't look up when he spoke, didn't acknowledge that she had a name, despite the fact that her name tag clearly read Maria. "I'll get you a fresh cup right away, sir," she replied, her voice calm and professional. She'd learned long ago that arguing with customers only made things worse, and she needed this job. As she moved toward the coffee station, she caught the conversation at table 12, 3 men in business suits discussing what sounded like a military contract. Defense contractors, probably. "The problem with these military advisory positions," one of them was saying, "is that they're giving them to people who don't understand real combat. Desk jockeys and politicians who've never been in the field. What we need are people with actual special operations experience. Someone who's been in the thick of it, understands how modern warfare really works." Maria refilled their coffee cups without comment, but she noticed one of them glance at her dismissively. "Excuse me, honey, could you make sure this table is clean? We're discussing sensitive business here." She nodded and wiped down the already clean table, pretending not to listen as they continued their conversation. It was the kind of casual condescension she'd grown used to, customers assuming that because she served coffee, she couldn't possibly understand anything more complicated than breakfast orders. Around 2 p.m., a new customer entered, a woman in an expensive business suit who looked distinctly out of place in Murphy's worn vinyl booths. She was accompanied by 2 men who had the unmistakable bearing of security personnel. The woman chose a corner booth with clear sight lines to all entrances, and her companions positioned themselves at separate tables nearby. Maria recognized the tactical positioning immediately, but showed no reaction as she approached with menus. "Good afternoon," Maria said pleasantly. "Can I start you with some coffee?" The woman looked at her carefully, longer than most customers bothered to look at waitresses. "Coffee would be fine. And could you recommend something from the menu?" "The meatloaf is popular, and the apple pie is homemade," Maria replied. "Though if you're looking for something lighter, the grilled chicken salad is fresh." "Thank you. I'll take the chicken salad." The woman paused. "You have excellent situational awareness for someone in the service industry." Maria's hand didn't shake as she wrote down the order, but something cold settled in her stomach. "I'll get that coffee started for you." The afternoon progressed normally on the surface, but Maria noticed things that would have been invisible to her co-workers. The woman's companions weren't eating. They were watching, rotating their attention between the entrance and Maria herself. The woman asked for specific items that gave her reasons to call Maria back to her table repeatedly. At 4 p.m., another customer entered Murphy's. This one made her blood run cold. He was tall, distinguished, with silver hair and the ramrod posture that never really left career military officers. He wore a civilian suit, but everything about his bearing screamed authority. He scanned the diner once, his gaze settling on Maria, and she saw recognition flicker across his features. Colonel James Mitchell, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. She hadn't seen him in 3 years, not since the classified debriefing that had supposedly closed the book on Operation Desert Ghost. He walked directly to an empty table in Maria's section, sat down, and waited. When she approached with a menu, he looked directly into her eyes and said, "Hello, Major Santos. It's been a long time." The coffee pot in Maria's hand began to tremble slightly. Around them, the diner continued its normal rhythm. Jake calling out orders, customers chatting over their meals, the cash register ringing up checks. But for Maria, the entire world had just shifted on its axis. "I think you have me confused with someone else," she said quietly. "I'm just a waitress." Colonel Mitchell smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Major Maria Santos, 75th Ranger Regiment, Special Operations Command. Medal of Honor recipient for actions during Operation Desert Ghost, Afghanistan, 2019. Officially retired from active duty following injury sustained in classified operations. Maria glanced around the diner, acutely aware of how many people could overhear their conversation. "Sir, I really think—" "Maria, we need to talk, privately. There's a situation developing that requires your specific expertise. The Secretary of Defense has personally requested your consultation on a matter of national security." She set the coffee pot down carefully on his table, her mind racing through possibilities and implications. After 3 years of serving eggs and coffee, her former life was reaching out to reclaim her. "Colonel, with respect, I'm not that person anymore. Major, with respect, people like us don't get to stop being who we are just because we change uniforms." The woman in the corner booth was watching their interaction with obvious interest now, no longer pretending to be a casual customer. Her security detail had shifted positions subtly, ready for immediate action. Maria Santos looked around Murphy's diner, at the cracked vinyl booths, the coffee-stained counters, the co-workers who'd known her only as a quiet waitress who never caused trouble. For 8 months, this had been her world, small and safe and predictable. But the Medal of Honor recipient who had led Special Operations Forces through some of the most dangerous missions in modern military history had never really disappeared. She had just been waiting tables. The silence between Maria and Colonel Mitchell stretched like a taut wire. Around them, Murphy's diner continued its afternoon routine, oblivious to the fact that 2 of the military's most highly classified individuals were having a conversation that could reshape national security operations. "Maria," Jake called from the kitchen, "Table 6 needs their check." She held up one finger to Colonel Mitchell. "Yeah, I'll be right back." As she processed the check, Maria's mind was calculating exit strategies, assessing threats, and trying to understand why the army had tracked her down after 3 years of successful civilian integration. The woman in the corner booth was still watching, and her security detail had positioned themselves to control all exits. When she returned to Mitchell's table, he was reading through what appeared to be a classified briefing folder. "Major, I know you chose to leave active duty for personal reasons, and the Army respected that decision, but the situation we're facing now requires someone with your specific combination of skills and experience. Which skills would those be?" Maria kept her voice low, professional. "Strategic planning, special operations leadership, and cultural expertise in Middle Eastern theater operations. Plus your ability to operate effectively in civilian environments without drawing attention." He gestured around the diner. "You've proven that last part admirably." Maria glanced toward the woman in the corner. "And your friend over there?" "CIA Deputy Director Catherine Walsh. She's been trying to locate you for 6 months." "Why?" Mitchell opened his folder slightly, revealing satellite photographs and intelligence reports. Because there's a terrorist cell operating in the southwestern United States, and their leader is someone you encountered during Operation Desert Ghost." The name hit Maria like a physical blow. Khalil Rahman, the arms dealer who'd orchestrated the ambush that killed half her unit and left her with shrapnel in her spine and nightmares that still woke her up screaming. "Rahman is dead," she said flatly. "I confirmed the kill personally. That's what we thought. But 3 months ago, intelligence assets picked up communications that matched his operational signature. Weapons purchases, recruitment patterns, tactical planning that bears his distinctive fingerprints." Maria felt the familiar weight settling in her chest. "Even if he's alive, which I doubt, I'm not active duty anymore. Send Delta Force or SEAL Team 6 or—" "Major, Rahman isn't just planning random terrorist attacks. He's specifically targeting former members of your unit. Sergeant Williams was killed in a car bombing in San Antonio last month. Lieutenant Foster died in what looked like a home invasion in Denver. The coffee cup in Maria's hand began to shake. Williams and Foster had been her soldiers, good people who'd trusted her leadership and followed her into hell because she'd asked them to. How many others are left? From your original 12-person team, 4, including you. The others have been moved to secure locations, but Rahman has demonstrated sophisticated intelligence capabilities. Maria looked around the diner again, seeing it now not as her refuge, but as a potential battleground. Jake at the grill, Mrs. Patterson who came in every morning for coffee and toast, all of them could become collateral damage if Rahman found her here. What exactly are you asking me to do? Consultation initially. Help us understand Rahman's operational methods, provide insight into his psychological profile, assist with tactical planning. Consultation from where? Pentagon. Langley. Mitchell hesitated. Actually, we were hoping you'd consider temporary reactivation, full colonel, your choice of assignment, complete operational authority for the Rahman situation. Maria almost laughed. Do you want me to go from serving coffee to leading special operations again? Major, you never stopped being a soldier. You just changed uniforms. Before Maria could respond, Deputy Director Walsh approached their table. Up close, she was younger than Maria had expected, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Major Santos, I apologize for the surveillance, but we needed to confirm your identity and assess your situation before making contact. My situation? Whether you were hiding from the military or hiding from Rahman, whether you'd maintained your operational capabilities or truly retired. Maria looked at both of them, these representatives of a world she'd tried to leave behind. And your assessment? You've maintained perfect operational security for 3 years. Your physical conditioning is excellent, despite service-related injuries. Your tactical awareness never turned off. I watched you track my security team from the moment we entered this building. Walsh continued, Major Santos, Khalil Rahman has evolved his operations since Afghanistan. He's not just an arms dealer anymore. He's building a network of domestic terrorist cells with international funding and sophisticated intelligence capabilities. What kind of activities? Mitchell slid one of the satellite photographs across the table. It showed a compound in the Arizona desert, about 200 miles south of Phoenix. We think he's planning a major attack, possibly multiple coordinated strikes. Maria studied the photograph with eyes trained to read tactical intelligence. The compound's layout, the defensive positions, the vehicle patterns, everything about it screamed professional military planning. When? Soon. Possibly within the next 2 weeks. Maria looked at the photograph, then at Colonel Mitchell, then at Deputy Director Walsh. 3 years ago, she'd walked away from this world because the physical and psychological costs had become unbearable. But Rahman was hunting her former soldiers. If I do this, she said quietly, it's not consultation. It's operational command. My team, my rules, my responsibility. Agreed. And when it's over, I go back to being Maria Santos, waitress. No follow-up assignments, no recruitment attempts. Agreed. Maria stood up, untying her apron with hands that were steady now, purposeful. Jake looked over from the grill, confused. Jake, I have to go. Family emergency. Sure thing, Maria. Hope everything's okay. She smiled at him, this kind man who'd never known he'd been working alongside a Medal of Honor recipient. It will be. As she walked toward the exit with Colonel Mitchell and Deputy Director Walsh, Maria caught her reflection in the diner's front window. For just a moment, she saw not Maria Santos, waitress, but Major Maria Santos, United States Army Rangers, the woman who was about to go to war one more time. The CIA safe house in Scottsdale looked like every other suburban home in the upscale neighborhood. Red tile roof, manicured landscaping, 2-car garage. But Maria noticed the reinforced windows, the discreet security cameras, and the fact that the neighboring houses were just a little too quiet. Inside, the house had been transformed into a tactical operations center. Computer terminals lined the living room, satellite communication equipment occupied the dining room, and the walls were covered with maps, photographs, and intelligence reports about Khalil Rahman's network. "Welcome to Operation Nightfall," Colonel Mitchell said, as he led Maria through the briefing materials. "Your old friend has been busy since Afghanistan." Maria studied the intelligence reports with the focused intensity that had made her one of the Army's most effective special operations commanders. Rahman's network had grown exponentially. Weapons smuggling, human trafficking, coordination with domestic extremist groups. "A personnel assessment," she said, falling back into command mode. "Who do I have to work with?" Deputy Director Walsh activated a large screen that displayed photographs and service records. "We've assembled a joint task force, military and CIA assets, all with relevant experience." Maria studied the faces, reading between the lines of their official records. Good people mostly, but she could see the political compromises, officers chosen for their connections rather than abilities. "This won't work," she said bluntly. "Excuse me? Half these people are bureaucrats. A quarter are politicians in uniform. Maybe 3 or 4 have actual special operations experience." Maria turned away from the screen. "Rahman isn't some amateur with a grudge. He's a professional military strategist. Major, these are the resources available through official channels. Then we go unofficial." Maria pulled out her phone, not the cheap prepaid device she'd carried as a waitress, but a military-grade encrypted communicator she'd kept hidden for 3 years. She began scrolling through contacts that officially didn't exist. "Sergeant Major Rodriguez, currently working private security in El Paso. Master Sergeant Chen, running a martial arts school in Las Vegas. Captain Williams, discharged last year and working construction in Tucson." She looked up at Mitchell and Walsh. "Real operators, people who've actually done this work. Major, we can't just call up discharged military personnel for classified operations. You can if you offer them temporary contracts and proper authorization. These people know how Rahman operates because they've fought him before." Maria was already dialing. "Sergeant Major Rodriguez? It's Major Santos." "Yes, I know it's been 3 years. Listen, Rahman is alive and he's in Arizona. How soon can you get to Phoenix?" Over the next hour, Maria assembled her team with the same methodical precision she'd used to plan special operations in Afghanistan. Each call was brief, direct, and resulted in immediate commitment. "Impressive," Walsh said as Maria finished her final call. "But we still need official oversight. Deputy Director, with respect, official channels are how Rahman stayed alive for 3 years after I supposedly killed him. Official channels are how he got intelligence about my unit's current locations." Maria moved to the map of Arizona, studying Rahman's likely operational areas. Rahman is running a professional military operation with sophisticated intelligence support. That suggests he has sources inside the official channels. You're suggesting there's a leak in military intelligence. I'm suggesting that Rahman didn't just randomly decide to surface in Arizona and start hunting my former unit members. Someone told him where to find us. Colonel Mitchell looked uncomfortable. "Major, that's a serious accusation. It's the only explanation that makes sense." Maria traced routes on the map between known Rahman sightings and the locations where her former team members had been killed. "Look at the timing, the precision of the attacks. Rahman isn't just alive. He's being supported by someone with high-level access." Walsh studied the map, her expression growing concerned. "If there is a leak, how do we proceed?" "We go dark. Compartmented information, need-to-know basis, operations planned and executed without going through normal intelligence channels." Maria turned to face both officers. "I'm talking about a completely black operation." "Major, I can't authorize that level of autonomy." "Then find someone who can, because Rahman is planning something big." Maria pointed to the satellite photographs of the compound. This facility isn't just a hideout, it's a staging area for multiple teams conducting coordinated operations. How can you tell? Because this is exactly how I would plan a multi-target terrorist attack. Maria's voice carried hard-won experience. Isolated facility for final preparations, multiple small teams for simultaneous strikes, intelligence support to identify targets. She moved to another section of the map, pointing to major military installations and civilian infrastructure. Luke Air Force Base, Davis Monthan Air Force Base, Fort Huachuca, major highways, power generation facilities. Rahman has dozens of potential targets that would maximize casualties. Walsh looked at the potential target array with growing alarm. How do we stop him? We do what special operations forces do best. We find him, fix him in place, and finish him. With your unofficial team of discharged veterans. With soldiers who know how to fight this enemy because they've done it before. Maria checked her watch. Rodriguez will be here in 4 hours. Chen arrives tonight. The others should be assembled by tomorrow morning. And then we go hunting. Colonel Mitchell looked at the scope of the operation Maria was proposing. Off-the-book special operations conducted by discharged veterans against a sophisticated terrorist network. Major, if this goes wrong, Colonel, if we don't act, Rahman is going to kill hundreds, maybe thousands of American civilians. My former soldiers are already dying because someone in our intelligence community is feeding information to a terrorist. Maria's voice carried quiet authority. The only question is whether we're going to stop him using procedures he can predict and counter, or whether we're going to fight him the way wars are actually won. She looked at both officers, waiting for their decision. What's it going to be? The encrypted phone call came at 0600 hours, rousing Maria from the first decent sleep she'd had in 3 days. On the secure line, a voice she hadn't heard in 5 years spoke with the crisp authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that shaped national security. Major Santos, this is General Patricia Hayes, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Maria sat up immediately. The chairman didn't make personal calls to retired majors unless the situation had escalated beyond normal parameters. Good morning, General. Major, I've been briefed on Operation Nightfall and your assessment of the Rahman situation. I'm also aware of your concerns regarding intelligence security and your request for autonomous operational authority. Maria waited. Generals like Hayes didn't call to chat. I'm authorizing your black operations proposal. Complete operational autonomy, off-books funding. No oversight except direct reporting to my office. You'll have access to any resources you need, but if the operation goes sideways, you're entirely on your own. Understood, General. Major, I knew your father. Colonel Eduardo Santos was one of the finest officers I ever served with. I'm trusting that his daughter inherited his judgment along with his tactical abilities. The line went dead. Maria stared at the phone, processing the implications. The chairman had just given her carte blanche to conduct military operations on American soil. Complete trust or complete desperation? Probably both. At 0900, Sergeant Major Rodriguez arrived. Maria hadn't seen him since her medical retirement, but he looked exactly as she remembered. Compact, efficient, with quiet competence that made him invaluable in special operations. Behind him came Master Sergeant Chen, Captain Williams, and 3 other veterans she'd specifically requested. Ghost Leader, Rodriguez said with a slight smile. You look good for someone who's supposed to be serving coffee. Rodriguez, you look old for someone who's supposed to be running private security. The familiar banter helped ease reunion tension, but Maria could see the questions in their eyes. Why had she vanished? Why was she back now? What exactly were they being asked to do? All right, people. Let's get down to business. Maria activated the main display screen, showing Rahman's compound and intelligence analysis. Khalil Rahman is alive, operational, and planning major terrorist attacks on American soil. He's systematically eliminating members of our former unit, and he appears to have intelligence support from inside our own security apparatus. She walked them through the evidence. the timeline, her assessment of Rahman's capabilities. These were experienced operators who understood the implications immediately. "So we're going in dark," Williams said. "No official support, no backup, no extraction plan if things go wrong." "That's correct. And if there really is a leak in military intelligence," Chen asked, "then we're the only people Rahman doesn't know about yet." Rodriguez studied the satellite photographs. "Tactical assessment? Professional defensive positions, estimated 20 to 30 personnel, sophisticated communication and surveillance equipment. Rahman's not just hiding, he's running a command center." "Timeline? Intelligence suggests imminent action, possibly within 72 hours. The room fell silent as the operators processed the mission scope. They were being asked to conduct a direct action raid against a fortified terrorist compound, without official support, based on intelligence suggesting a major terrorist attack was imminent. "Ghost leader," Rodriguez said quietly, "you know we'll follow you anywhere. But are you sure about this? 3 years out of the game, jumping straight back into special operations." Maria looked at each of them, these soldiers who'd trusted her leadership through dangerous missions. She thought about the physical therapy, the nightmares, the long process of learning civilian life. Then she thought about Williams and Foster, her former soldiers who died because Rahman was hunting her unit. "Rodriguez, 3 years ago I walked away because I thought the war was over. Turns out the war followed me home." She moved to the tactical display. "Rahman killed our people. He's planning to kill American civilians. And someone in our own government is helping him." "What's the plan?" Chen asked. Maria activated a detailed tactical map. "Reconnaissance first. We need current intelligence on personnel strength, defensive positions, operational schedules. Then direct action, fast, quiet, decisive." At 1400 hours, Colonel Mitchell burst into the operations center with an expression of barely controlled panic. "Major, we have a problem. Rahman's teams are already moving. Intelligence intercepts suggest coordinated attacks within the next 24 hours. Maria felt familiar command responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Targets? Luke Air Force Base, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, and what appears to be a mass casualty event at a civilian gathering. How reliable is this intelligence?" "Very. But Major, there's something else." Mitchell's expression was grim. "The source of this intelligence is Deputy Director Walsh. She's been in communication with Rahman's network." Maria stared at him. "Walsh is the leak. We don't know if she's working with them voluntarily or if she's been compromised, but her communication logs show regular contact with known terrorist operatives. If Walsh was compromised, then Rahman knew about Operation Nightfall, knew about Maria's team, and was possibly using their planning against them. Where is Walsh now? That's the other problem. She disappeared an hour ago, along with all classified files related to this operation." Maria looked at her team, then at Colonel Mitchell. The mission had shifted from direct action to a race against time, with the added complication that their primary intelligence source was possibly working for the enemy. "Rodriguez, how fast can we get to that compound?" 2 hours by vehicle. We don't have helicopters anymore. This is completely black operations now." Maria moved to communications. "Mitchell, I need you to evacuate this facility immediately. If Walsh is compromised, Rahman knows where we are." "Major, I can't just—" "Colonel, you can and you will. Take your people and get clear. My team will handle Rahman." "With what support?" Maria checked her equipment, verified her weapons, looked at the 6 veterans who'd answered her call without question. "With the same support we had in Afghanistan when we first went after this bastard." "Which was?" "Each other." As Mitchell evacuated the safe house, Maria's team prepared for immediate deployment. They had perhaps 12 hours before Rahman's attacks commenced, 2 hours travel time to reach his compound, and no official backup if the mission went wrong. But they had something Rahman didn't expect. Soldiers who'd learned to fight him in Afghanistan, who understood his methods, and who had personal reasons to ensure he didn't survive this time. Maria Santos, who'd spent 3 years hiding behind a Waitress uniform, was about to remind Khalil Rahman why her call sign had been Ghost. Some ghosts were very hard to kill. The compound materialized out of the Arizona desert like a fortress designed for siege warfare. Through her binoculars, Maria counted defensive positions, vehicle arrangements, and personnel movement that confirmed her worst fears. Rahman had transformed this location into a command center capable of coordinating multiple simultaneous terrorist attacks. "Ghost Leader, this is Overwatch," came Rodriguez's voice through her earpiece. He was positioned 300 meters north, providing sniper support. "I count 27 personnel, mixed combat and support roles. They're preparing for immediate deployment." "Copy, Overwatch. Chen, what's your status?" "Communications are jammed from inside the compound, but I've got eyes on their satellite equipment. They're definitely coordinating with external teams." Maria studied the compound through her scope, her mind automatically calculating approach routes, breach points, and extraction scenarios. After 3 years of civilian life, the familiar weight of tactical command felt both foreign and completely natural. Williams, personnel movement, confirmed deployment preparations, vehicles being loaded with weapons and explosive devices. Timeline suggests they're moving to final positions within 2 hours. 2 hours. If Rahman's teams were deploying to target locations, that meant the attacks were imminent, possibly within 6 hours. "All stations, this is Ghost Leader. We're going dynamic in 30 minutes. Rahman's teams are moving to attack positions, and we cannot allow those operations to commence." She switched to tactical frequency, connecting her to Colonel Mitchell's relocated command post. "Nightfall Base, this is Ghost Leader." "Go ahead, Ghost Leader." "Confirmed terrorist deployment in progress. Request immediate notification to Luke Air Force Base, Sky Harbor Airport, and Phoenix Metropolitan Emergency Services. Unknown number of terrorist teams moving to attack positions within 6 hours. Copy, Ghost Leader. Alerts being transmitted now." Maria checked her equipment one final time. Assault rifle, tactical vest, enough ammunition for sustained firefight, and the combat knife that had served her through 18 months of special operations in Afghanistan. She thought briefly about the quiet life she'd built serving coffee at Murphy's Diner, then pushed those thoughts aside. "All stations, commence final approach." They moved through the desert with fluid coordination of a team that had conducted dozens of operations together. Each soldier knew their role, understood the others' capabilities, and trusted the tactical decisions that would determine survival. Maria approached the compound's main entrance, while Rodriguez maintained overwatch. Chen moved to disable communications, and Williams positioned himself to prevent vehicle escape routes. At 50 meters from the outer fence, Maria encountered the first sentry. He was professional, alert, and armed with military-grade weapons, but unprepared for someone with Maria's level of training. She neutralized him silently, secured his position, and continued toward the main compound. "Ghost Leader, this is Overwatch. I have eyes on Rahman. He's in the central building, coordinating with what appears to be team leaders." Maria felt familiar cold focus settle in her mind. After 3 years, she was finally going to face the man who'd killed half her unit, who'd spent months hunting her former soldiers, and who was planning to murder American civilians. "Copy, Overwatch. Maintain surveillance." She breached the compound's outer perimeter, using techniques perfected in Afghanistan, moving through defensive positions with tactical precision that had made her one of the Army's most effective special operations commanders. The first building contained weapons storage and communication equipment. Maria planted explosive charges while Chen disabled satellite communication, ensuring Rahman couldn't coordinate with external teams once the assault began. "Ghost Leader, movement in the main building," Rodriguez reported. "Rahman's heading toward command center." Maria moved toward the central structure, her assault rifle ready. This was the moment 3 years of civilian life had been leading toward: final confrontation with the man who defined her nightmares and destroyed her attempt at normal life. She breached the main building's entrance with tactical charges, then moved into what revealed itself as a sophisticated command center. Multiple computer terminals displayed maps of Phoenix, tactical plans for coordinated attacks, and real-time communication with terrorist teams already positioned throughout the metropolitan area. 30 seconds to communication blackout, Chen reported. Maria positioned herself outside the reinforced door, where Rahman was coordinating operations. Through a small window, she could see him directing final preparations, checking his watch, issuing orders, reviewing target photographs. She thought about Sergeant Williams, Lieutenant Foster, and other unit members who died because Rahman had refused to stay dead. She thought about hundreds of civilians who would die if his attack succeeded. "Rahman!" she called through the door. "It's over. Surrender now." Automatic weapons fire erupted from inside the command center, bullets splintering the door frame. She rolled to cover, signaled Rodriguez for suppressing fire, and prepared to breach the room where Khalil Rahman was making his final stand. "Ghost Leader, this is Chen. Communications are down. Rahman can't coordinate with external teams." "Copy. Williams, status on vehicle interdiction. All escape routes secured. No one leaves this compound." Maria activated breaching charges and moved into the command center with fluid precision. Rahman was positioned behind computer equipment, armed with an assault rifle and what appeared to be a dead man's switch connected to explosive devices. "Major Maria Santos," he said in accented English, the ghost who refused to stay dead. "Hello, Khalil. You're looking good for someone I killed 3 years ago. Apparently neither of us is as dead as we're supposed to be." They faced each other across the command center, two soldiers who'd spent years hunting each other through dangerous terrain. Rahman looked older, harder, but his eyes held the same ruthless intelligence. "Your teams won't succeed," Maria said, keeping her weapon trained on him. "We've alerted the authorities. Luke Air Force Base and Sky Harbor are locked down. Perhaps, but I have other teams, other targets. Kill me, and the attacks proceed anyway. Maybe, but you won't be alive to see them fail." Rahman smiled coldly. "You know, Major, I've spent 3 years planning this moment, not just the attacks, this confrontation between us." "What are you talking about? Did you really think Deputy Director Walsh was the leak? She was just the cutout. The real source has been much closer to your operation. Colonel Mitchell." "Very good, Major. Your commanding officer has been providing intelligence about your unit's activities since Afghanistan. He's the reason we found Williams and Foster." The implications hit Maria like a physical blow. Mitchell had been feeding information to Rahman for years, had orchestrated this entire operation to eliminate the last witnesses to his collaboration. "The attacks are real," Rahman continued, "but they're also a trap to bring you out of hiding so I could eliminate the final threat to a very profitable relationship." Maria's radio crackled. "Ghost Leader, this is Nightfall Base. Mitchell here. What's your status?" She looked at Rahman, who was watching with obvious satisfaction. The dead man's switch would trigger the attacks even if she killed him. "Nightfall Base, this is Ghost Leader. Rahman is contained, but we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where the person asking for status reports is feeding intelligence to terrorists." Silence on the radio. "Major Santos," Rahman said quietly, "you have 30 seconds to decide. Kill me, and my teams attack immediately. Let me walk away, and attacks are postponed indefinitely." "Option 3, Maria replied. She shot the communication device in Rahman's hand, disabling the dead man's switch, then put 2 rounds center mass before he could react. As Rahman collapsed, Maria was already moving to computer terminals, accessing communication logs that would prove Mitchell's collaboration. "All stations, this is Ghost Leader. Rahman is down, beginning intelligence recovery." She worked frantically to download intelligence files while watching approaching vehicles through the windows. If Mitchell was coming to clean up loose ends, she had maybe 10 minutes to secure evidence. Maria finished the intelligence download and activated building destruction charges. Rahman's command center would be eliminated in 60 seconds. "All stations, extract immediately. Rally point Alpha." She exited the compound as explosions destroyed the central building, leaving no trace except Rahman's body and intelligence files that would reveal Mitchell's betrayal. As her team disappeared into the Arizona desert, Maria transmitted recovered intelligence directly to General Hayes' secure system. The terrorist attacks would be prevented, Mitchell's collaboration would be exposed, and Rahman's network would be dismantled. 3 days later, she walked back into Murphy's diner, tied on her apron, and began taking orders from customers who had no idea their waitress had just prevented one of the largest terrorist attacks in American history. "The usual, Mrs. Patterson?" she asked the elderly woman at table 3. "Yes, dear, coffee and toast. You look different today, Maria." "Rested." Maria smiled as she poured the coffee. "Just had a few days to remember who I really am." Outside, Phoenix continued its normal routine, unaware that hundreds of lives had been saved by a waitress who'd once been one of America's most decorated special operations officers. Some secrets were worth keeping, but some ghosts were finally ready to rest.